It's not a gotcha. It's not an attempt to assassinate any character. We just want to have a good open exchange so that they can share their ideas in terms of how they believe they can move the city forward. Once again, we want to thank Don Gosney for his service in recording. He's also acting as timer. So we're going to begin by giving each candidate an opportunity to offer a 90-second opening. Timing is right here. When you see that yellow light flash up, that means you have 10 seconds left. Don's got the clock here. I think it's pretty understandable for all of us. So we'll just go down the line, and we will start with Mayor Eduardo Martinez. 90 seconds on your opening statement, sir.
90 seconds, all right. I'm a retired elementary school teacher. I taught at West Point Unified School District for approximately 18 years. I also taught in juvenile hall. I set up a 7th, 8th grade self-contained county court classroom. They wanted me to start out with individualized instruction in little carousels. I said that's the wrong approach. These people need to learn how to get along together as if they were in a regular classroom, so I disregarded my instructions and did what I thought was necessary, and my students actually improved. In fact, there was a mental health facility that was nearby and with counseling, and their customers were afraid to go by our classroom at the beginning, and we got complaints. By the middle of the school year, they were amazed at how well our students had become acclimated to relating to people on a regular basis. I also was the lead in March for Education, which is a movement that we did when I was an elementary school teacher, 2004. We led students, teachers, community members from our school down our elementary all the way to Sacramento, demanding that the school debt, which was incurred before our students were even in school, to be rescinded. We had it renegotiated, saved millions of dollars.
Ms. Jimenez.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you for being in the early morning. I am Claudia Jimenez, and I am proud to be standing here to be your next mayor. I am running because for mayor because I am passionate about Richmond and what Richmond can do in the next 10, 20 years. And we have been moving the city forward, and we will continue to do that with all of you and with many others. As I am an architect from Colombia, and I used to work with small farmers in the Andes Mountain doing participatory construction and designs of housing, but also doing environmental planning and kind of like here, helping a small business or small farmers discuss with the big industry of the sugar cane and see what they can do to really improve the life of everybody in that region. And here, as a community organizer, I have been working alongside many community organizations to improve services in the community, and this is what I have done in the city of Richmond. The fiscal stability that we have has been in part because the work that I have done to make it more sustainable. And I will finish with, we just moved from 12% in reserve to 21% in reserve in the budget.
Mr. Anderson.
Ahmad Anderson, longtime resident of the city of Richmond. Peace and blessings to you all. I've lived in Richmond all my life. That's not living here, but I've been active and leader, bringing jobs to the city of Richmond as workforce development, as the workforce planning supervisor here in the East Bay, but based out of the city of Richmond. Active with our youth's child care council, youth service bureau, working with mentoring individuals throughout this community. Involved in education as the board of the Freedom School at Easter Hill United Methodist Church. I've been involved as this economic development chair for 2 years, from 21 to 23. Been involved with the NAACP as their economic development council there for them. ensuring that jobs are representing folks who've been unrepresented and folks who've not have a voice and not recognize the actions that it takes to step up and step in. I'm here running for your mayor because, one, it says you need to be qualified, and qualified means you live in the city of Richmond. But I think it takes more than that. It takes leadership that serves with integrity, leadership that serves with transparency, and people-centered focus. 3 bread and butter issues, which are public health issues. 1 is public safety, prevention, and engagement. 2 is about economic development, which leads to workforce development. And last, but most importantly, not just affordable housing, but reasonable housing, meeting people where you are. Trust me, been here before in this room, I've worked with you before. I'm part of that branding, advocacy, network, and conduit. I am your next mayor for the city of Richmond, Ahmad Anderson.
Mr. Johnson.
Well, good morning, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Demnlus Johnson III. I'm a 4th generation Richmond resident. Grew up here my entire life. I went off to Howard University and graduated in 2015 and returned home to Richmond, where I ran for city council in 2018 and was elected the youngest person in the history of the city. I went on to serve as vice mayor as well as obtain a master's degree from the Gosney School of Public Policy at UC Berkeley. I've worked at Richmond High School as a school community outreach worker. I've worked for both Jumpstart and Rocket Ship Public Schools as a government and policy relations manager. In my personal life, on the council, I've championed many policies, including the reparations, equity, and inclusion policy. I've worked with Nancy Skinner's office to obtain an almost $250,000 appropriations for Richmond Build. As mayor, I do plan to increase our access to workforce development by making sure that we have satellite campuses in our neighborhoods of Richmond Build, working with our local businesses to access capital and city programming such as the revolving loan funds and the facade improvement funds and other things to help our local businesses scale up. I'm also 100% committed to recruiting more industries to the city of Richmond, both green and traditional, to make sure that we take some of the tax burden off of some of our existing businesses. As your next mayor, I'm 100% committed to working with you, not just at your business roundtable meetings, but consistently and thoroughly throughout my time as mayor.
All right, thank you, candidates, for your opening. Now, again, the way this is set up today, there are no pre-planned questions as such, so this affords you an opportunity to pose your own questions. You can ask a question directly to a candidate, or it can be a question for all that they each will respond to. So I'm going to ask at this time, are there any specific questions right now? If not, I'll prime the pump for you.
Show them how to do it, Jeff.
Okay, Rich in the back.
Yeah, again, I'm on the chamber board, and one of our goals is to promote business and to promote just a good advocacy with the city. I had one of our members send Vern and I a memo the other day that says it's taken me 4 years to get a permit to build housing in Richmond. And said, what can you do to help? So I guess I would ask the question on permits, what is your plan as mayor to help expedite permits in the city of Richmond?
So I assume that's a question for all, so we'll just reverse the order this go round. We'll start on this end, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, well, one thing that I would do to expedite building here in the city of Richmond is dissolve the design review board and fold those responsibilities back into the planning commission and refer all of those qualified members to the planning commission. I think for a long time, projects have been held up and haven't even been able to get to the permitting process because of this bottleneck that is not in our city charter. Also, I think it has become a place where appointed individuals can extort business owners and developers. And so for me, it's about redoing that entire process and making it a lot less convoluted, as well as working with our city planning department to figure out what bottlenecks exist there. Is there a staffing shortage? Is there a paperwork issue? How do we digitize a lot of our processes so that way individuals don't have to come all the way down to Civic Center, but a lot of things can be referred to online? For me, it's about moving Richmond into the 21st century and using technology as well as basic common sense to get things done in the permitting, as well as the entire process of getting things done here in the city of Richmond.
Yeah, I'd agree with what Mr. Johnson has said, except I don't know about the extortion aspect of it. But I do agree with, as an administrator, human resource administrator, one thing is to look at what the process is. What has not been addressed? Why hasn't it been addressed? One of the questions we always talk about in the city is not having the proper staffing, but also proper staffing. Do we have the right people reviewing the permits? And do we have the innovation technology so that there is a response? One, that I have sent it in response time that it has been received. Two, if it's not correct, then what are the corrections needed to do so? And then have a working representative who will identify who is the most qualified, who is not qualified to be able to get the permits, and then work with them and just not be an answer of no. In addition to that, I think one of the things that concerns for you, if they're seeking your information and should be calling the City of Richmond, somebody's not picking up the phone. And that's a challenge. And it's a challenge with what we have here from some of the bread and butter issues that takes care of the city. I think also, and it relates to city and improvement, is the kind of networking. As Mr. Johnson said before, just don't come to the breakfast or the cake cutting or the ribbon sessions for the network here. One of the things I know here, there are people here on this, our present leadership. 4 years ago, when we had forums like this, refused to come, boycotted the Chamber of Commerce. And then, wouldn't come 1,000 yards, didn't want to be related to them. But now is the time. Now is the time because we haven't seen the kind of leadership that brings forth that revenue that enables people to build homes in our community.
Thank you, and I want to recognize Council Member Doria Robinson from District 3 that just joined us. And I also want to recognize that the leadership in the Chamber of Commerce has changed, and I am super glad that Vernon is now leading this. So thank you for inviting me. And I will say, you mentioned housing. We don't have a housing department. It's 1 or 2 staff that takes from homeless issues to housing, new housing development. So we need actually to create a robust housing department that has the right staffing, because a lot of what happened is that many permits are being looked at by one person. Of course, so the decks start to pile up and it doesn't move through. And I think also is about the information, like streamlining is not just cutting things, but it's just making the process to be more smoothly. If we know that the housing is in downtown or in areas where we know there is a lot of issues and we want to move it fast, we need to have a better process of streamlining in these areas so we can move fast, because I think time is the essence, and sometimes because it takes many times, it costs more. So having a really map out what is the process, and developers and people know what is the process and how long it will take, and who is the person to call, that will be a key part. Thank you.
Mr. Martinez.
Yes. You mentioned permitting, and we go through the Planning Commission, we go through the design and review, and I've attended both of them, and I found that a lot of times on the design and review, they want to address issues that are the purview of the planning department, and sometimes the planning department addresses issues that are the purview of the design and review. So combining the two makes the most sense, so that all of them can be discussed together in the same venue, and it also cuts another step out. And when you combine steps, it makes things much quicker. We also need to digitize. I was upstairs waiting to meet one of the fire marshals, and I noticed one of them going through these paper files. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm looking for something, and it turns out that the fire files had not been digitized, and so I pushed an agenda item to digitize all of the fire marshal files, and it quickened everything, and so we also need to do the same thing for the planning department. So those are the two major things that would help the speed the planning process.
All right, from the audience, is there another question for the candidates? Ms. Wilson?
Good morning, thank you all for showing up so early this morning. I have a question as far as your property owners in Richmond. I hear a lot of complaints that they feel like they're not being represented. Like for the ones that are landowners or have rental properties. Right? They feel like the back of having rental property, the weight of property management is on their backs. So can you tell me, in your current position or the positions that you have become, because some of you have been there for a while and part of this whole rent control issue, how are you going to support your property owners who feels like they just can't afford to be in business anymore? Right? They're not being heard. So what can you do to support them and help them? And that goes from fees, the rent board, to even code enforcement, where they're not being heard with their complaints and assistance in helping. If you can please help.
Is that a question for all?
That's for everybody.
All right, who wants to?
Same rotation.
Okay.
What was that again?
Candidate Wassberg has just joined us.
Yeah, the bus broke down.
That was a question pertaining to rent control and the burdens that it puts on property owners, makes it difficult for them to do business here in the city of Richmond. So is there anything that you, in your capacity, should you assume the role of mayor, is there anything that can be done to help alleviate some of the difficulty that property owners face in Richmond due to rent control?
Well, we know for a fact that the RPA wants, the city council, these two candidates here, they want rent control all across the board. Now, if you do that, you're gonna destroy the real estate business. You know, I can see some type of rent control on some property, but we don't wanna do it on all the property, because what you're gonna do, you're gonna put Richmond in a real bad situation, because renters, they can't even sell their property. They're trying to sell their property because they can't sell, is because these two candidates right here. So, you know, my own personal opinion, I'm against rent control, but on the other hand, there's certain things you might have to have rent control, because we know some landlords are greedy and other landlords are not. So we have to determine which is going to be on rent control and which is not. But like the private sector, like homes and stuff like that, that cannot be under rent control. Because we know for a fact that the RPA tried to pass this scam, it was about 4 or 5 years ago, that they wanted to come in and devaluate the property so the poor people could buy homes. So in other words, if your home's worth $300,000, the city council is going to come in and devaluate it to about $100,000. See, this is what they try to break the real estate market, just to satisfy the poor people, and you cannot do that. Once you destroy the real estate market, you're going to destroy Richmond.
All right, time, Mr. Wassberg, and just for your benefit, I know you came in a little late. Mr. Gosney is doing the timing. Got a clock here at the yellow light, 10 seconds remaining, so just so you know, timer's here, so we can all keep moving right along. Mr. Martinez.
Yes, sir. What I heard from you was something concerning code enforcement. We have been lacking in the number of people to do that job, and we're hiring more. And the more we hire, the faster that issue can be addressed. I also know that there are problems with the rent stabilization. I have heard of instances in which tenants who have been problematic, not only for the owners, but also for the other tenants around, having difficulty in evicting them for the safety of the community. So I think that's something that really needs to be looked at. We need to make sure that it not only provides difficulty for, excuse me, let me turn that off so, right, so as I was saying, we need to revisit the process so that these sorts of problems don't persist. Persist either for the tenants or the landowners.
Ms. Jimenez?
Thank you. I am a homeowner and I rent my ADU also. So I understand the issues homeowners face. And I think that we need to have, when they have an issue, that the city really responds to them in a way that they don't feel like there is no response. So co-enforcement, people calling to say there is some issues in the community, we can't do that. This is why also in terms of having more services, we created a community crisis response program. A lot of people have some issues between neighbors, and these are the things that no violence call that can be addressed by professionals to help people to resolve these issues in their neighborhoods. I know, for instance, we want to make sure that like homeowners who wants to build ADUs, they said that it's difficult. We need to, again, streamline, have some designs that are, okay, these three, and it doesn't cost a lot of money because the design costs a lot of money. And to support in these ways and in other ways to put money into supporting homeowners to stay here.
Mr. Anderson?
I'm presently on the board of directors for Fair Housing Advocates for Northern California. We have programs in Contra Costa, Marin County, and Solano County as well. In that capacity, we not only deal with the real estate, and we also partner with real estaters, but we also work with apartment owners in understanding that many of the folks, for example, in Richmond, inherited those for their families. Those are small business owners. So we need to be able to respect them in the same way that they are contributing to our community, providing that housing. Having gone to school at UC Berkeley, understanding the value, and having been a renter, what rent control can do for somebody to be able to stabilize, to be able to provide economic opportunity, to be able to put that money into being able to buy groceries, to stay in school. That's important. In my role, would always be there to advocate, have been advocating, have been doing advocacy in the state, working with Buffy Wicks and with Senator Arguin as well, to ensure that renters are treated fairly, that we respond accordingly, that people are respected in their community, being invested in this community, but that people feel protected and respected and safe in those communities, and you're responded to make sure that we have the communal relations that you need to have. Since your neighbors, you should be friends, and that's the role.
Mr. Johnson?
All right, well, in response to your question, I think one of the first things as mayor that I have to do is change the relationship and change the narrative. For too long, property owners and even business owners have been demonized and ostracized in this city, especially by its leadership. And so the first thing we have to do is stop this narrative that all property owners and landlords are either corporate-owned property owners or slumlords. We, as Ahmad mentioned, a lot of them are individuals, legacy property owners who had things passed down. And so thinking about that and approaching it from that point of view as community members and as individuals who are trying to help the city stay, maintain its culture and its vibe, we have to provide help to individuals who need it. You mentioned the fee structures. You mentioned code enforcement. To directly address those issues, the city has to provide some type of workshop and concierge service to make sure that individuals have access to capital to improve their properties when they're getting in trouble with code enforcement, so that way they're not getting hit with different fines and eventually getting their properties taken away from them. We also need to revisit our fee structure to see, I know it's already on the sliding scale, but with the cost of living going up, we also have to check out how that's impacting current property owners. I think it's beautiful that we go off on these tangents, but to answer your question directly, We need to change the narrative. We can't have city leadership talking about property owners and business owners as if they're like this devil from the outside.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Before we move to the next question, I just feel compelled to provide you all with some information. That's an important topic in being the real estate business. It just kind of resonates with me. A couple things everyone in the room needs to understand. Here in the city of Richmond, it is a voter-approved rent control ordinance. So with regard to that, the city council, their hands are somewhat tied with regard to what they can do because that was a voter-approved ordinance. Also, with regard to the administration of rent control in the city of Richmond, there is an autonomous rent control board that the city council has not 100% control of. So those are two issues that really impact the issue of rent control in Richmond. So I just thought it was important that you be aware of those two facts. I believe, Mr. Z, you had a question, John
Yes,
Z.
Mr. Moderator, if I could, just in fairness, could we allow the opportunity for Mr. Wassberg to introduce himself and his background, because we did not do that.
That's fine. Mr. Wassberg, 90 seconds.
Want me to stand up or?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, I was raised in San Pablo, went to Richmond High. I worked all my life in Richmond, worked in the refineries and the factories. When that was closed down, I got into a job training program, became an auto technician for several years. Then I went to Laney College, got into filmmaking, became a filmmaker. And the reason why I got into politics was because years ago, the RPA, the Richmond City Council, ordered the police chief to stop the checkpoints because the illegal immigrants, the Latinos, were getting caught driving illegally. And I said, wait a minute. I said, I have to obey the law and they have the right to drive illegally when I gotta have insurance? See, this is why I got involved. Of course, you know the RPA, they don't believe in the law. They passed an ordinance to hide criminals from the law. We all know what's going on with the city council. See, this is why I really got involved in politics. So that's my background.
Thank you for that, Mr. Anderson, for reminding me to give Mr. Wassberg an opportunity to speak. And along with that, I'll just reiterate the fact that this is an open discussion here. The intent is for the candidates to enlighten all of us with regard to their viewpoints. Not an attack session, not a gotcha, not a character assassination. So let's just keep that in mind and keep everything copacetic. John Zeeson, you had a question.
Yes, the police department is severely underfunded. What is your plan to fund the police department and get them back to full staff, especially the traffic patrols, because our streets are very dangerous?
So we'll start on this end with you, Mr. Johnson.
Yes, well, first off, I 100% believe in a fully staffed police department, and at the last forum we were celebrating minimum staffing. And for too long, I think we've been celebrating a bare minimum in this city. So would really love to work with our police department to improve our recruiting efforts, as well as our police explorers at our high schools, so that way we can recruit from within. Also, as you mentioned, most definitely want to get back on the traffic because the donuts, the double parking, the way that individuals are driving up and down school zones is most definitely unacceptable.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Anderson, how do you set the clock?
Yes, so I'll say this, that one, I support public safety. As I've said before previously, it's about protection, it's about respecting those in community, and also feeling safe in your community. And that's for everyone. We are presently at 130, I think, that are hired. We should be at 147. We have 14 folks in training, 4 on workers' comp, and 5 and maybe more that will be retiring. It's difficult to recruit as an HR person when you don't know what your budget's going to look like, or that in the RPOA's case, that you have a contract. So people want to know where you're going to be. There has been some discussion about lateral officers coming over and being able to fill in the space with their experience from other cities that aren't hiring. But they also want to know where the contract is too. That creates a pipeline. The pipeline's important that in recruitment, the best recruiter is those who are your leaders and those who are on your force. If you have an adversarial relationship with your police department, then why should I, as a police officer, want to come there with thinking that I have an opportunity, that I'm able to build a career in that environment? We got to be able to have not only trust, but safety. We have to be able to make sure that those are aligned together. We have to be able to provide training for our officers as well to understand the integrity, the trauma, and the relationship that we've had in this police department. From the cowboys in the past to the crack epidemic, and making sure that we respect everyone, no matter where you live.
Thank you for the question. 36% of our budget goes to the police. We are ending overtime because we have been, and this new Chief Simmons has been doing an extraordinary work, bringing more police here. Actually, he said that some people in the police force from Oakland, laterals, came to the city of Richmond, and why they are coming here? Because there is no threat to lay off, because we have a good standing in our budget. So we are able to hire more officers. And I agree that we need to fill all the vacancies. But I also agree with the way that we as City Council has been pushing for a holistic way of public safety. This is why we doubled the budget of Office of Neighborhood Safety. This is why we created the Community Crisis Response Program that is responding to nonviolence and mental health issues. And in terms of the streets, because we cannot have a police in every corner, we are also making engineering improvements in the city, where I advocated for creating the Community Traffic Safety Program, and this year we were able to put $6 million into that program for our surplus that we got this year. So we are in that way moving in that direction of public safety. Thank you.
I don't think it's right to say that the police department is underfunded when we have enough money to hire more policemen. I've talked with Chief Simmons. We just hired 70 people. But I talked to Chief Simmons, and I told him, well, I asked him, how much more do you need in order to keep hiring? And he says, well, right now we have enough, but when we need more money, I will let you know. So there is communication between the police department and the city council, the mayor's office. We want to make sure that the police department has enough people, but we also want to make sure that the load that the police department handles is less. And that's one reason why we have ONS and why we have created ROC. They take issues which are better handled by people with more expertise in mental health. And just in negotiating, there's been many examples with ROC in which an issue took more time than the police really has to do. And so having these departments working hand in hand will provide the ability for our public safety.
So the reason why in 2020, when the BLM was burning down America, the RPA, the Richmond City Council, defunded the police out of hate. This is why just about every Democratic city in the United States, all the police were leaving. Because there was, people did not want to be cops. Cops were getting assassinated. It was following them to their homes, attacking them. See, this is why the RPA, the City Council, defunded the police. And these two police officers that should have came back when they was found not guilty by the district attorney, was out for almost a year, is because the City Council did not want these police to come. All right? The reason why you're having a hard time hiring police, because they don't want to be cops. Just like I told you before, they're getting attacked everywhere they go. People are resigning. People are retiring early. You have some people from the Richmond PD go to the county. You have a city council right now that hates the police. They're trying to get rid of the police. And what they did was they cut $3 million out of Richmond PD to give them to a park. And all this money, all these $1 million they're spending on parks and community centers, they're not going to give that money back to the police. I mean, go and look at what the city council has doing. This is what they did. You cannot have a city council that hates law enforcement.
Thank you, Ms. Wassberg.
Can I recognize also Council Member Bana, who just came in? Thank you.
All right, continuing on with our questions from the audience.
Just a question about safety net program. So HR1, the impacts of HR1 and how it's affected the state budget and how the state's had to make certain cuts to safety net programs that many of our local businesses and employees of those businesses rely on, like Covered California, are being impacted. You know, in your role as a mayor, how would you help protect as much as possible, given the constraints of a city budget? How much, what would you do to help protect safety net programs for many of the workers that are employed by the local business, to make sure that they can stay here, they can work here, and still, you know, be able to live and not just simply survive?
A point of clarification, you mentioned HR1. I don't know if everyone in this room knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's the one big, beautiful bill, as it was called, and it just made a huge amount of changes to the federal budget and how the federal budget is spent. Much of that funding was used to, much of that funding cut state funding that we use in California to provide health care through programs like Covered California, to provide resources for schools, for all the issues that were mentioned here, law enforcement, public safety, and the downstream effect is that now counties and cities are being called upon to provide more and more resources and services with more, limited funding that previously was being supported by the state and by our federal government.
All right, Mr. Wassberg, we're going to start on your end this time.
There's nothing much we can do when the state and federal government cuts funding. I mean, they control the money, right? We all know that. And the money we're getting from Chevron should probably give relief to some of these people. But the bottom line is, the state and feds, they control the money. They're going to take the money away, and then they give it, and they take it away. All right? We all know what the government does. And for them to cut the refunds, this is why Donald Trump is cutting off the money to California, because they're a sanctuary city. That's why he's cutting the money. And if you don't believe me, you can look for yourself. All right? But there's some type of programs we could probably do something for the businesses to keep them alive. But the bottom line is, as a city, we really can't do much. You know, we could try, we could pass some type of ordinance to protect some of these people from businesses and stuff like that. But the problem is now, what they're doing is, they're even raising taxes. What they're doing, College across the college has canceled out 2, 3, 7, 8 jobs. Because what they're doing is, they want to spend more money on illegal immigrants than for the system, all right? Go ahead and look at the news. We all know what they're doing.
Mr. Martinez.
Yes, HR1 is just one of the many symptoms of a person who should not be in office. Not only HR1 is hurting this country, but also the war that he initiated against Iran, which is helping our enemies and destroying our economy. We can see that at the pump, and soon we'll see it at the grocery stores. But what we can do as a city is what we've been doing already, which is making sure that our finances are in proper order. We were on the state's watch list economically. We have gotten off of that. And as Councilmember Jimenez mentioned, our savings has increased. So we can weather the storm, and that's what reserves are for. So we are also attracting new businesses, which will add to our property tax, our sales tax. We just landed OpenAI, which will hire 750 people, so that's more jobs in the city of Richmond. So we're continuing to do more good work and making sure that our city remains financially stable.
Thank you for the question, and I think, yeah, it's difficult, but we have been doing some example of what we can do, and I think that we continue. For instance, with the ARPA funds during COVID, we had grants for small businesses who are not doing well to get access to money from the city. I think we should continue to do that. We are also doing the facade improvements, so businesses are applying to that. We need to continue that. We need to continue really to have more support at the business, especially the small businesses, so they feel like they had a staff or a department to go and really help them when they are having difficulties. We also created 500 youth jobs for young folks in the city from 60 to 26. And not only that, but any business can apply to get these young folks to work for them, paid by the city. I think that is also a recovery part. We also changed the business license tax, which before it was paid by each employee. So now you don't have to pay by each employee. So because before it was you fire people if you want to reduce your business, your taxes. So continue to do all these programs and more.
In 2022, we did the Measure U. Measure U was supposed to bring in additional funding for the city to be able to support and brand, as we mentioned here, the bank, BANC, for the network here for small businesses. It's supposed to help in also the recruitment of individuals that are the age of 16 to 26. The challenge is when you're not safe that people don't want to stay here in the community. Some we haven't received, when I was the Economic Development Commissioner chair, received the data that says that is really working and where's the money going and how have we provided to hire more folks at those particular age rates that we're talking about here. I think, you know, that's a situation where people in hell need more than ice water. People need jobs that lead to careers, crops that provide benefits. It's good to have our youth going there, but we need to work with buildings and trades. I've recommended that we build an East Bay Training Skill Center here that talks about AI, that talks about buildings and trades, where you start with pre-apprenticeship programs from high school to our community colleges, but works with the West County Contra Costa area in that way as well. It also talks about AI, 700 jobs. Well, what are the skill sets that we have as a community that will be able to be qualified for those jobs? Having a skill development training will do that. To ask them to come here or they come here, ask them how the benefit will be here to hire Richmond first. Being able to bring working families up to speed, being able to provide prevailing wages, and make sure that you hire Richmond first because this is a priority.
Well, one thing I've always been saying, I've been constantly saying is, as a city, we have to increase our revenue streams. We have 3 primary sources of revenue: property taxes, business taxes, and utility user tax. I believe in increasing more businesses so that way we can increase our stream of business tax, increasing the amount of single-family homes that are being sold in Richmond so we can increase our property tax. I always joke and say, I haven't figured out user utility. Maybe we can get a check from Netflix or Hulu. I don't know. Maybe I haven't figured that out just yet. But in order to pay for social, we have to be able to pay for social programs on a long-term basis. We also not just have to be able to pay for them, we have to partner with the proper agency who's in charge of administering social programs in our county. You mentioned health. we have to partner with our county health department and increase health opportunities here in the city of Richmond, so that way that burden can be removed from employers, and individuals will have a cheaper way of paying for health care here in the city of Richmond. We also, to address the affordability crisis that we all know. It's the economy, stupid. Like, people can't afford things. And so that's why when I was on the council, I worked really hard to establish universal basic income here in the city of Richmond. Now, funding and philanthropy dried up during COVID, but I am 100% committed as mayor. I even signed a petition, Mayors for Universal Basic Income, because that's how much committed I am to making sure that individuals have extra money in their pocket to attend to medical bills, groceries, gas. And you'll probably hear other candidates say it more now that I've mentioned it.
Okay, we're going to deal with one more question, and I hope it's the hot, burning question. And then I'll give them an opportunity to close after they ask the question. So, your question is?
Well, no pressure now, right? I'm kind of an outsider to California. I moved my family here from New York, and I always felt that in order to do business, you have to be here to understand what the community is. And as a hired person by Verity, which is a battery energy storage company that is on 1414 South Harbor Way. Still, I can't get there because I get lost, but it's another situation. Sarah Wiley took me around and showed me what Richmond was. And in order to do infrastructure, you kind of have to understand what you're working with. So my thing is that I found out pretty quickly, in order to survive in life, you have to find your talent to do your passion. And what I found out with Richmond, its talent kind of mirrors its passion, which is it has an unbelievable infrastructure of moving transportation all around.
Yes.
And I guess my question to you, kind of going back to what Rich was saying, the permit process is a difficult application, I can only assume, by social needs of building anything. The batteries themselves, that permit process is very hard. And it's not very hard to do, it's very hard to instruct people on how to do it. So a part of that, my thing to you, and it's just a general question, instead of being at each other about who's going to do this or what, like, what would you suggest as like a couple of days in, how to bring people together from business, both the fire marshal, the building inspector, those people, to develop a way to say, hey, this is how we have to get it done, and if we build it, Verity will expand jobs, more competition you will empower the green empowerment zone, because Richmond's a part of it. So I guess my thing is that what would your plans be for listening to businesses and small businesses like myself to be a part of Richmond that way?
Most definitely.
We'll start on this end.
Yes. Well, as I mentioned in my introduction, constantly engaging, not just at the business roundtable meetings or coming to your needs settings, but actually coming out to your business and actually sitting down with you and figuring out what are some of the issues and bottlenecks that you're experiencing here in the city of Richmond. I also believe in compiling that data and seeing if there's any common themes or motifs, right? Like maybe you aren't the only one experiencing something, and how can we get to the root causes of those issues? At the end of the day, I'm a policy nerd. You probably heard it in my responses. I like to answer the question and get to the real bottom of the issue. And so for me, that's what it's about with the businesses as well, with public safety, with communities, is finding out what is actually making the problem continue. And usually it's policies and it's systems that continue to persist without any type of acknowledgement. And so for me, it's about breaking down those systems and breaking down those policies and making sure that we use our radical imagination to come up with something extremely different and that works for everybody, and especially for the individuals that it's supposed to impact.
As a former workforce development commissioner, I was in the city of Oakland, and I lived in Richmond, but in the city of Oakland because at the time I was the workforce plan supervisor for UPS. You talked about logistics. One of the things that we did there, which can be done here, is hold a forum here in this area, in the auditorium, wherever necessary, bringing the business together, having an opportunity to have that forum to understand the process of business in the areas that you're concerned about. The actual using of technology and innovation, using some of the Chevron funds to improve those innovation technology services, and also staffing. We talked about budget and how we've been able to surplus budget, but we haven't had the staff to be able to provide the services to communities they need to do the outreach. Each one of our president, city council people, and mayor here talked about we need to improve staffing, we need to improve technology. Well, again, one of our mayor's been here almost 12 years, and our city council's been here 4 years, and we've been asking the same questions. Being able to come to a forum here just because the leadership changed is not what leadership's about.
Right.
It's coming to places where you've not felt comfortable and stepping over into that arena and saying, I'm here, I'm vulnerable, I don't know you, I need to have more exposure and experience. Having these workforce development conversations to hear those challenges, but be able to respond in real time, takes time. But leadership takes time. It's not the role or your title, it's taking care of those in your charge.
I love that question because Vernon and I are working particularly on the permitting because we have been communicating about that. So please talk to Vernon because next week we are going to have a meeting and he is committed to bring together some of the small businesses and some of the businesses to start this conversation that I already started with the city attorney about how the procurement process can be improved. I have been talking to the artists, and we are also working with the artists here because as contractors, they want to be here, but and they receive this grant, but sometimes the grant is so small that they and the requirements for having this insurance are so costly that they ended up having to spend half of the grant in just insurance. So we are working on that. And this is as a community organizer, I have been facilitating a small and difficult conversation with everybody. And this is what I am so glad that the leadership of the chamber is burning because he also is reaching out to the other side as well to have this conversation, and we are doing it. So I am not here just to say I am going to do this. We are doing it. I am doing it with my leadership that I have as a city council right now. So I will be glad to see you next week. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, cooperation, communication is of prime importance, and the more communication we have, the better we can move together. I've been having conversations with Verity. We are actually talking about coming up with a program to do microgrids at our community centers, and also fire departments. I just added on as possible things. So these kind of communications need to happen, and in the process of that communication, other topics, like permitting, can come up. So I've been to Verity many times, and I have also been to other businesses to find out what their needs are. So as a mayor and as city council, we can only pass legislation. It's the city manager who actually does all the nuts and bolts to make sure things happen. But we can have conversations with the city manager to make sure that things are happening as they should. In terms of hiring, she's the one who hires everyone. We tell her where we need to hire, she hires them. But, it's the council and the mayor's office also working with the city manager to make sure that these things happen.
Doesn't matter what kind of business you have to obey code, right? You gotta obey code, you gotta obey the laws, just like some of these smoke shops. They're selling illegal drugs, they're selling all this other stuff, and the city council still letting them operating. You had a double homicide at one smoke shop, I would have closed that thing, I would have closed all the smoke shops down. But the question is, you can't favoritize a business for them to disobey ordinance, all right? We all know that. Because doesn't matter if you have a small business, a medium-sized business, a multi-billion-dollar business, the city needs revenue. Now the city council, all they want to do is pass their small green business jobs. This is what they want to do, because they want to close Chevron down. But the bottom line is, you can't favoritize when it comes to ordinance and laws. They all have to obey the law, they have to have a certain ordinance. You just can't open a business and do what you want to do. It doesn't work like that, all right? But this is what the city council is letting these people do. They're letting them get away with it. I mean, you go down and look at these smoke shops, you see a bunch of thugs and gangsters and dope addicts hanging around there every day. All it is a public nuisance, right? Go down there and look for yourself. But the bottom line is, man, you just can't favoritize when you come to businesses. I believe I answered this question right there.
Okay, so that concludes our question and answer portion. So we're going to allow each of these candidates an opportunity to provide a closing statement. So Mr. Wassberg, we're going to start on your end. You can wrap up with your closing statement and we'll just work our way down to the end with Mr. Johnson. Mr. Wassberg, you have the floor.
Well, actually, I had no plans on running in the first place. I had other things going. But when I found out what Martinez did on this anti-hate speech that he was promoting against the nation of Israel, claiming that was a terrorist organization that killed these people in Australia, it went like wildfire. See, this is why Jimenez is running, because you have the RPA is going to split the vote, because the RPA wants Eduardo out. Now, these two other candidates, they're going to split the black vote, because they have not been endorsed by the NAACP. And hopefully I'll get enough votes where I'm just going to shoot right up the middle. Besides, you cannot have people in our government that's going to support terrorism and hate and violence, and this is what this city council is doing. They even tried to pass a law trying to ban ICE, which is enforcing federal immigration law. You ever heard of that? They're trying to ban these people from arresting criminals, drug cartels, cold-blooded murderers, pedophiles, the person that killed Laken Riley, that 14-year-old girl that was raped and murdered and beaten and left floating in the river. This is what these people are protecting. This is what the Richmond P is protecting. You don't do this stuff when you're on our government. The job of a city council is promote public safety and infrastructure. That is the two main reasons of a city council. For the last 20 years, these people have been supporting criminals and hate and murder, and they're just letting people run wild in Richmond. If I'm there, that ain't going to happen, because I'll shut it down. If I have to sign an executive order or a file lawsuit against my own city, I'll do it.
Mr. Martinez.
During my 4 years as mayor, the city of Richmond has improved, not only in terms of infrastructure, but also in terms of emotional well-being. Last year, our homicide rate was the lowest ever, and I'm working to make sure that it continues to be low. Everywhere I go, people are telling me that Richmond is a different place. Richmond feels safer than it has ever felt. I know that there's a lot of work to do. I know that there's a lot of communities that still have a sense of not belonging, but we are working on that. We need to make sure that all of our communities are heard, are serviced well. We've been working with Parchester Village to make sure that Parchester Village has better flood control. We've been working with other communities to help them out. From Carriage Hills, well, from El Sobrante all the way to the south side, things are improving.
Ms. Jimenez.
Thank you. This election is about choosing a leadership that you trust, but not only that you trust, but has proven results. I believe this candidate is me. When I got there to the city, there were $19 million in deficit from the last year. Since I had been there, we had surplus. We got rid of predatory loans that made us to get out of the audit, improve our ratings, and to bring reserved from 12% to 21%. People wants to be here. And there is a lot of more things that we need to do. But there is a great opportunity with a proven leadership that can get things done and meet with people where they are to improve. This is why I am running for mayor, because I believe that what I had delivered to Richmond in these years that I have been there has been impressive for what we are talking right now. I can tell you more things, but we are cleaning the city for bad contracts and making the city be in the 21st century or more. And with your help, we can continue to do that. Thank you.
City of Richmond needs leadership, correct, that is proven and demonstrated. I've spent my life here in the city of Richmond in workforce development, bringing jobs to the city of Richmond, working with our logistics community here, making sure that the focus is about pride and purpose. But pride and purpose has not been based upon the entire city. It's focused on zip codes. The folks in the south side of Richmond won't tell the same story that say in Carriage Hills. The folks in Point Richmond may sing the same song as they do in Parkchester about poor health quality, the air from Chevron. But we don't have the health and welfare services that we need to provide from hospitals. Hospitals that will provide jobs for training for our nursing program at Contra Costa College. We don't have this area right across the street that was vibrant in this community, where we could build an East Bay Skills Center, developing people in AI, developing people in trades. We need leadership who's been involved in this community, such as myself, who is a public service servant for Operation Neighborhood Safety, a block captain, going out in the community, working with neighborhoods to understand what crime is going on through the city and sharing that information. Being an economic development commissioner who's led and did door-to-door with businesses to make sure we heard what was shared. But also somebody who knows you all well as a member, as former member here at the chamber, former member of a board member, understanding what the pulse of the city to make it right and to improve the quality of life in the city of Richmond.
Well, as mentioned, my name is Demnlus Johnson III, and I am your candidate for mayor. I'm a fourth-generation Richmond resident, and when I say that because that means that I'm someone who knows where the city has been, where the city is, and the potential that the city has to move forward. I'm also, as I mentioned before, a policy, legislative, and government relations nerd. And as business people, that's what you're essentially hiring when you hire a mayor. Someone who can look at the policies, look at what's going on in the city, look at the legislation, and provide leadership on how to move the city forward. Your next mayor will be leading the city through the General Plan 2050. If we're not talking about Richmond 2050 and setting us up for what businesses, what housing, and what economic development is going to look like in that year, then we're not going to be in the future. And if you don't have a mayor that's willing to step out and step up when it comes to bringing an investment into the city of Richmond, helping change the narrative when it comes to the city of Richmond, because I know the city of Richmond inside and out. This is what you're hiring when you hire a mayor. Someone who can unify the city, all parts of it. Someone who can bring people together and work across different lines. Not someone who works where they're comfortable. Someone who only works in an echo chamber. But an individual who's willing to step up and step out and fill in the gap wherever they see one. And that's what you get when you hire Demnlus Johnson as your mayor. A dedicated public servant who's been doing this for just about my entire adult life now. And I want to continue to do it for you. Thank you.
All right, let's give our candidates a round of applause. All right, we yield the floor to you, Vernon.
All right, thank you. I'd like to thank the Mayor, Councilmember Jimenez, and also the panel at large. And Jeffrey, at the last minute, stepped in, and as Jeffrey always does, he shows up. Thanks, Jeffrey. Okay, all the board members, Richmond Chamber board members, stand up. Thanks for being here. And Jennifer is the general manager of the courtyard area. So the courtyard some people don't even know it's open, but the chamber has embraced the courtyard. We have in many